All right, everyone, get ready for a deep dive today. One that might make you think twice about parking lots. We're talking about Michelle Lay.
Michelle Lay.
Yeah, she was a nursing student, 26 years old, just vanished.
Vanished, like completely gone.
Just like that. In 2011, broad daylight, a Kaiser Permanente Medical Center, Hayward, California. Picture this, you're at work, you step out for a quick break, head to the parking lot, and boom, gone.
That's scary.
No kidding, that's exactly what happened to Michelle.
So what, just poof, no trace.
That's what makes this case so wild. It went from missing person to something much worse, really fast. At first, it was just, student doesn't come back from break. Then, security footage shows her car leaving. But she's not driving.
Oh, wow.
And then, to top it off, the next morning, her car's found abandoned, not even a mile away, with, get this, traces of blood inside.
Blood, oh man, that changes everything.
Absolutely. Suddenly, it's not just a missing person case anymore. So where do you even begin to look for answers?
Well, like always, you got to start with the basics, last known movements, anyone she knew, that sort of thing. And that's when this former friend of hers comes into the picture, Giselle Esteban.
Okay, former friend.
But not just any friend. There's a whole history there. They both, let's just say they were connected to the same guy romantically.
A love triangle.
You could say that. Both Michelle and Giselle were involved with this guy, Scott Maresigan. Michelle and Scott, they dated briefly years back. But it was Giselle who ended up having a kid with him.
Complicated.
Very. Even though Scott insisted that, he and Michelle were just friends, Giselle, well, she got super jealous.
I can see how that could lead to some serious problems.
Oh, yeah. Jealousy is a powerful thing, especially when it gets out of control. Insecurity, possessiveness, anger, all mixed up. It's like a recipe for disaster. And in Giselle's case, it seemed like this jealousy became like an obsession.
So we've got a missing person, a jealous ex-friend. But is there anything that actually ties Giselle to Michelle's disappearance? I mean, jealousy is one thing, but...
Yeah. Right. Well, this is where technology comes in. You know how they say it solves crimes? Cell phone records were key here. Investigators tracked both Michelle and Giselle's phones, the night Michelle disappeared. And guess what they found?
Tell me.
Both phones traveling south towards this place called Sunol that led them to a really remote spot in Pleasanton, miles away from the hospital.
So like a trail, they use the phones to retrace their steps.
Exactly. It's like a digital breadcrumb trail. But for months, the search for Michelle, it just went on and on. Volunteers, they searched everywhere, this rugged area near the interstate, desperate for anything. And then September 17th, 2011, they found something. And here's the thing. It was this woman, Carrie McGonigal. She's a volunteer. She'd actually lost her own daughter to a violent crime. And she's the one who found Michelle's remains, skeletal remains.
Oh, wow. That's just
awful. Yeah. And with the remains being found, the focus, it really shifted to Giselle. They already had her on the radar because of the connection to Michelle, the phone data, but now it's like game on. They had to figure out what happened in that parking lot and how Michelle ended up so far away.
So disappearance, suspicious friend, cell phone trail, and then the remains. But is there anything directly connecting Giselle to the actual,
Right. Crime. Well, yeah, and this is where it gets even crazier. They searched Giselle's apartment, and get this, they found a shoe. A
shoe?
But not just any shoe. This one, well, forensic testing later proved it had Michelle's blood on it. Talk about a smoking gun. Yeah, I mean, you don't just find someone else's blood on your shoe every day.
It's a pretty big deal. It must have been a huge break in the case.
Huge. It was the link they needed. Remember, up to this point, a lot of it was circumstantial. Jealousy, cell phone records, being in the same area. But this was physical proof. Michelle's blood on Giselle's shoe.
Hard to argue with that.
Right. So now they know she's involved. But how? And what exactly happened?
So how did Giselle react when they confronted her with this?
It's almost like she was trying to play both sides. Denying everything, but then you could see the resentment towards Michelle just pouring out.
It's like she couldn't keep up the act anymore.
Exactly. And remember those text messages we talked about earlier?
The ones she sent to Scott?
Yeah, those. They were like looking right into her mind, seeing all the rage and jealousy, threats, accusations, all directed at Scott and Michelle.
Like a confession, almost.
Right. Was she so caught up in it all that she didn't even realize how bad those messages made her look? Or was it intentional, like she wanted to leave a trail?
A really twisted game.
It's hard to say, but those messages, they really changed the game for the investigation. Motive, timeline, it was all right there.
It's wild how much of this stuff was captured digitally. Like technology helped solve the crime, but it also documented it in a way.
Totally. It's a double-edged sword, technology. But let's move on to the trial itself. This thing, it was all over the news. Everyone was watching. The prosecution, they had a tough job, but they had a lot to work with.
What was their approach? How did they try to convince the jury?
They went step by step, laying it all out, the evidence, the timeline, all pointing to Giselle, the surveillance footage, her being in the parking lot, the cell phone records, tracking her movements, and, of course, the shoe.
That must have been a powerful moment.
Absolutely. But the defense, they had to try something.
Did they have any chance?
Not really. They tried arguing that it was all just circumstantial, that there was no direct proof she killed Michelle, no eyewitnesses, questioning the tech stuff. But it was a losing battle. There was just too much against her.
So a pretty clear-cut case for the prosecution.
Yeah, pretty much. But there was one moment in the trial that really stands out, when Scott had to take the stand.
Oh, wow.
Can you imagine that? Reliving everything, the disappearance, the not knowing, all while facing the woman accused of doing it?
Must have been incredibly tough.
It was. You could hear it in his voice, the pain, the anger, the confusion. He talked about Giselle's behavior, the jealousy, the threats. It was raw, heartbreaking.
Powerful stuff.
And then Carrie, the woman who found Michelle's remains, she took the stand too.
Wow.
That really brought it home. The emotions in that courtroom, you could feel them. She talked about the discovery, the relief, and the sadness all mixed together.
She'd been through so much herself. Losing her own daughter, then finding Michelle.
Yeah. So you have all this evidence, the prosecution's case, the defense struggling, and then these incredibly emotional testimonies. It all led to the jury's decision. So they had all that to think about. Weeks of testimony. And they came back with a verdict after just one day.
One day.
Yeah, December 10th, 2012. Guilty. First-degree murder. The whole courtroom, it was like a wave of emotion. Relief, sadness, everything.
Makes sense. It must have been a lot to process for everyone involved, especially for Michelle's family.
Absolutely. Nothing can really bring her back, you know? But at least there was some closure. Giselle was held accountable.
What was the sentence?
25 years to life.
It's a long time.
It is. I keep thinking about all the places in this case, they've become like part of the story themselves. The parking lot, that street where they found her car, and especially that place in Pleasanton where they found her. It's heavy stuff.
It really is. It's like a reminder, this could happen anywhere, to anyone.
You just never know what someone else is thinking. She was just living her life, studying to be a nurse, and then this happens. It's scary.
It makes you think. And the technology, the messages, all that online stuff, it's like a whole other layer of this case.
It's everywhere now. You got to be careful. But through it all, Michelle's family, her friends, they never gave up. They kept fighting for her.
That's incredible.
It is. They turned their grief into something positive, raising awareness, helping other victims. It's inspiring. Michelle's case, it's a tragedy. But it also shows how important it is to look out for each other, be aware, and never stop fighting for justice.
Well said. This has been a tough one, but an important one. It makes you appreciate life, and the people in it.
It does.
Thank you, everyone, for listening to this deep dive. It's been, a lot to take in. But these are the stories that need to be told. We'll see you next time.